Hello, and welcome to Voice of Achievers, a weekly podcast that dives deep into situations that shape the learning curve of experienced individuals. My name is Yashika, and I curate the stories of passionate individuals who dared odds to walk a tough road. Simple people like you and I. They tried, they failed, but they continued working hard and managed to stay afloat, even during hard times. So what is that one thing that changed their lives completely? What motivates them? What did they learn from their failures? Let's get into their world and explore their journey. What if moving freely and fluidly could enhance creativity and positive thought? What is creative movement of the body after all? And how does it help the mind and the body? Our guest, Ms. Preeti Sunderajan, is an accomplished creative movement expert, dancer, educator, and entrepreneur. Her performing career spans over 3 decades, and she has performed across India, the USA, UK, and Australia. She is classically trained in Bharatanatyam, contemporary dance, Chau, folk theatre, Kalaripayattu, and is also a yoga practitioner. She became an entrepreneur in 2006, understood the deeper meaning of performing arts and its impact on child development, and saw the need for an effective creative movement in education, which led to the successful launch of a structured curriculum called Body Talk. Preeti joined FitKids in 2014 as CEO of GAIT, Grooming Artistic Innovation and Talent. She has been successful in creating, developing, and establishing GAIT as the largest and first ever creative movement in education program across schools in India. Welcome to the show, Preeti.
Hi, Yashika. Thank you.
You took up performing arts as your career in 2004, turned an entrepreneur by forming a dance company.
Mm-hmm.
What was it like to select a career like this? Were there stigmas associated with you turning full-time performing artist?
Yeah, so even though I have danced from when I was a little child and we've performed extensively, I never thought that dance could actually be my career. Especially because at the time we were studying, it was the boom of computer science and electronic engineering. For some reason, I never thought that I would have an artistic career. So I kind of did the usual, tried to join a company until I auditioned for a London-based dance company. And then when I went there, it opened up a lot more possibilities for me in terms of what one could do with performing arts. How can you make it a full-time career? How can you look at performing arts in education? That was really an eye-opener. And when I came back, I decided I will take the risk of starting my own dance company because I knew I didn't want to do just Bharatanatyam. I wanted to do something different. So that is how I started my dance company. And we started re-looking at the form and how we could perform it to connect with younger audiences. That's how I launched Shiri Dance Company. And while we were creating neoclassical performances, I felt that in order to have a sustainable career in the performing arts, you need to either teach or you need to do something else with it, because just dancing and performing, you cannot make a career out of it. And also, by then I just had my first child, and I felt that I was looking at him move, and it was very interesting, and I was wondering how I could use the performing arts. I felt that was more exciting than the end product itself. And I felt a lot of skills could be developed by just knowing this process. And especially applicable for any one of us, irrespective of talent, whether you like dancing or not. I quickly kind of went deep into it. I started researching a lot, did a lot of workshops across the city, designed this module called Body Talk. We started recording all the outcomes of the workshops on how children were reacting, how was it impacting them. And then I figured that this is something that had a lot of potential and would add true meaning from the sense of helping the child develop their personality. So you're really using the performing arts but a much more deeper level. And you're going to be impacting the way children can potentially think as adults.
You said you went to London and understand performing arts and then came back to India. Do you
Yeah.
think the difference in the perception of how the performing arts has been viewed there and how it's viewed here? And do you think that the perception has evolved ever since you have been in the business? Because it has been more than a decade now.
Yes. So, well, in the West, and especially in London, because it's so eclectic and it's really a culture pot, and there's a lot happening culturally there. So, I think people are extremely open to experimenting, and the Arts Council itself funds good projects. So, artists can sustain themselves there. And you join a company, you get paid a salary, and you're there working 9 to 5 like anyone else in, say, banking or anywhere else. The system works there. Unfortunately, here in India, it's pretty much what you can do for yourself on your own. So there is not sustained funding, there is no structured approach to funding. There are different organizations that give you grants, but it's not as easy as it is in the West. So I think sustaining oneself in the performing arts becomes the challenge here more than anything else. It's not like we don't have enough exposure or we don't have enough artists, but just the fact that you can't sustain yourself keeps them all away from taking this as a career. So I think here in India, what becomes very important is that you need to find a creative way of using your performing arts in different areas, like some are into corporate training now. So you have to be able to find your path in the performing arts apart from just performance alone.
Finding your feet literally, isn't
Yes,
it?
yeah. You have to really create your own career. So when I started Body Talk, I know many people are working and doing creative movement, but I don't know how many are able to structure it and scale it. So that's where the challenge lies. And that was a challenge for me as well. So I signed up for a course for this Indian School of Business along with Goldman Sachs. They run the 10,000, they're doing a program for trying to reach 10,000 women entrepreneurs across the world. So I had applied for it, and I think I was the only artist in that group of women. We were one of the first few batches. And when I did that course, that kind of helped me understand, but how do I standardize it? How do I scale it? How do I operationally run it across the country? These are skills I don't have. These are skills I kind of started working on from there on. And thanks to the course, it helped me look at finance, look at operations, learn about these things. So I think one, as an artist, it is important that you spend enough time to learn the craft well. And luckily for me, I started very early. So it gave me a jump start. And I felt now it was important for me to get the other skills of management that I didn't have. And putting both together has helped me in this current organization, FitKids. And even with Body Talk, it kind of put things into perspective, because you don't just do something creative and you become very attached to it. And you think that's the best thing because I've put in all my passion and I've created this, so it has to be the best. It's very hard for you to detach yourself and look at it and be very critical about it. But I think I kind of learned how to do that, and hence was able to streamline structure. And so I think that's the missing gap, going back to our first question as well.
Sure. So, do you think that the society has evolved and has become a little more embracing towards artists now?
Oh, yes, of course. Like if I'm doing a show from my company and if I need a group of dancers, I get such good dancers, and they're all young, extremely willing to experiment, unlike when I was learning. And they're all busy. My only concern is that while they do all this at a young age, you have several performances. What happens when you're 30, 35? What is the career path you're going to take? Because, of course, the best part of classical dance is as you grow older, it ages with you. So most very fine artists are lovely to watch because now they have the experience of life which they can kind of use in their classical dance performances. And that becomes so much more interesting for an audience to watch. But otherwise, you have to find other ways of sustaining yourself, because then you get frustrated if you can't find that. I know artists, my contemporaries, who've just been performing and now they're at a stage in their life where they're worried about their healthcare, they're worried about not having their own place to stay because they haven't saved enough. These are issues that I'm concerned, like artists thinking about these things.
You also spoke about skills to be developed in children through Body Talk, the initiative that you had started.
Right.
Tell us about the relationship between creative movement and learning.
Yeah. Okay, so when I started looking at the process of creation, so one, you need to be imaginative, you need to be able to visualize, you need to be able to coordinate your body, you need to have some sense of rhythm, and you have to be able to express yourself using your body. So I felt these are skills that one needs anyways. And I said, if children can have these skills, if they are able to express an idea freely through their body, would be really great, because you're making that connection between the mind and body for them. So I thought that would be far more useful in the school setup rather than teaching them dance in the primary years, because dance again becomes another form of imitation, right? What kind of skill are you helping the child develop apart from sort of discipline, maybe a physical coordination, which even sport can give you? So that was a question I asked, and I felt, now what if I use this for them to express themselves? I give them an activity, and all the kids they are expressing it in the way they want to express. So you have 20 children in a class, each one doing something different. And I felt that was fantastic, because in the Indian setup, you're able to create that atmosphere in the class for children to express themselves freely. That's why I felt that focusing on developing these thinking skills for children becomes far more important. And that's how I started working on the curriculum. And the other part, you can also express your ideas using art or your voice, right? But I felt the body is far more important, because if you're a shy child, you will notice that shy children will not do funny things with their body. They will not try to move in many different ways. They're very restricted in their movements. And when you give them that opportunity without judging them, and they start experimenting. So, for example, if you tell them to move from one place to another without using their legs, so they wonder, then they kind of try rolling. Then I say, okay, now another way. If I tell them to come up with 15 ways, so then they move their back, they move sideways, they move with one leg up, one leg, one hand up. They're trying different things. So they're kind of taking a risk with their body, and they unconsciously, they're breaking certain bonds in their body, which will even open their mind eventually, because what you do with the body is very important and has a lot of effect on your brain development and the way you think, the way you feel.
So that brings me to the next question, which you have partly answered, that how is creative movement then different from dance?
Yeah. What we do in creative movement is that we use the tools of dance like body, space, rhythm, expression, but I use it in a method that I'm not teaching them. So, for example, like I told you, this activity of moving from one place to another, right? I'm trying to get you to become more aware of your body, but I want you to do it in your own way. Whether it's rhythm. So if we talk about rhythm, we teach them the basics of rhythm, which is speed, and that rhythm is a pattern that gets repeated. Then that's when it sounds rhythmic. So the understanding for the child is not just like when you typically ask someone what is rhythm, they will say something that I listen in music, or it's their music, it is beats of the drum instrument. So they're not making a connection to it. It is outside of them. So they've understood speed, and then I tell them, move your hand in high level, in fast speed, move your back low level, slow speed. So you see that each one is experimenting with speed in their own way. Then I tell them, create patterns with your body. And I say, patterns that you hear around you. So that could be the train, that could be traffic, that could be heartbeat. It can be anything, right? So I give them different situations. So, for example, by grade 4, one of the objectives is to help children be able to have the skill of abstract thinking. So now I give them a situation like an emergency room, and I say, why don't you all put together the sounds that you hear in the emergency room? And you can't act it. So it's just the sounds, and you do it like a symphony. So each one comes up with their own thing. And there's been children who say, they make the sound like tick, tick, and they say that's the sound of the drip, the footsteps, or the breathing. So now they see that rhythm is something that it's not alien to them. It's something that's around them. And the research behind this is why it is important as a skill to have rhythmic comprehension is because one has to be able to fall into rhythm, especially children, into the rhythm of the place. Most often, when children are unable to do that, they get distressed, they get anxious. So you won't be walking on the road like you're strolling on the beach, right? You're a little more alert when you're walking on the road. So your body language is different, your speed is very different. So every situation, you fall into the rhythm of the place.
Also for adults, isn't it?
All of us. So these activities really help the child start regulating themselves on their own versus saying, come on, stand in a corner, you're constantly banging. So thanks to this area that I've got into, it's just so vast. So then it goes into brain, what is happening in the brain. And then you understand that the part of the brain that enhances learning capacities is the same part that stimulates movement. So the more movement you do at an early age will stimulate your learning capacities like reading, writing, and math. So it's very interesting to see how everything is correlated, and that's why it becomes a lot more important for children to use movement to express themselves, to understand how their body is when I'm sad, when I'm angry, what is happening to my body. And we have this exercise where we say, only your hands are angry, only your legs are sad. So suddenly your legs become wobbly and they're weak and they're loose. So bringing awareness to different parts of their body, and they're also understanding. So if I feel sad, this is what could happen to my body. I'm just becoming a lot more aware because tomorrow when you are going through an emotion, your body is giving you the signs already. When, for example, you're anxious, maybe you start sweating. So you understand, okay, I'm anxious, rather than saying, I don't know what's happening to my body. So many times we as adults are so detached from our body that we don't listen to the signs. And I think creative movement will help you bring awareness to your own body and your own self and stay connected to it, which is very important, especially today.
Like you rightly mentioned, especially today, since it's very easy to get anxious, to get worried, to get sad, and not all people may be comfortable with dance.
Right.
Would you be able to give us one way in which both young and adults may be able to use creative movement in their regular lives to quickly rewire their brain and refocus it to bring positive thoughts?
Okay. Now, as adult, I feel you're more addressing issues that have happened in the past. You're anxious because of something that you think about. So there is a lot of baggage that we carry as adults. What I always like to do for my own self is when I'm anxious, I always like to stop and listen to my body. Just give myself that time to feel sad. When I get really upset, I try and not react. Maybe I step away or I try to do a physical activity. That helps me a lot. I feel the more I work with my body, I feel a lot better emotionally and physically. And I think that's very important to stay connected with your body. That's what I would recommend for adults. But children don't have the baggage that we have. So it's very important for them to let them enjoy themselves, however. We have our own fears and anxieties as adults that we pass on to our children. So I think that's one thing that the adult should stay away. When the child is experimenting or trying to create and not put their ideas into the child's head. The children are very aware. We need to let them be.
You've been in the creative and the performing arts business as an entrepreneur as well, and in a stable and in a profitable business at that.
Right.
One change that you feel you'd like to see in this space?
one thing I felt when I started GAIT, like in a much larger scale, what I find in that space is that don't think they need this. So I feel somehow I'm far ahead in terms of the product that I have. I just feel that people in the education industry, the system in itself is so rigid, and
Yes.
there is so much to cover that they could not be bothered about the other skills that the child may need. Yes, most schools now are changing and they are thinking about skills that one needs to get a job, for example, because we interview so many people and not once do I look at what they have studied. Unless it's a very technical field, you really don't look at whether they're an engineer, do they have double graduation, are they masters. You're not looking at that. So what impresses you is how they come across, how are they able to think, how are they able to structure their thoughts and share it with you, are they able to be logical, is there the right attitude to learn, are they able to communicate and connect with you, are they able to talk about different things, are they well read. These are the things that I look for. And I think somewhere, unfortunately, children who do extremely well in academic, I may not be able to employ them. So there's such a big gap, I feel, between what the market is looking for in terms of jobs and what we're giving children in terms of education at the school level. So I feel that disparity is too big, and that's something that we really need to deeply think and re-look at, because one is you come out of school not knowing how to manage finance, at a very basic level. You've learned math, but you don't know how to manage money. You learned science and you've learned physics, chemistry, and biology, but you don't know how to repair your cycle. Played sport, but you don't know how to climb a tree. I mean, my own son, my oldest son in 8th, ninth grade, his understanding of geography is so skewed. So I'm just wondering, like, he opens his tap, does he know where his water is coming from? We have EVS, but do we know? So there is a huge gap in terms of knowing or being knowledgeable and having a wisdom to know where to apply this knowledge. And that's so unfortunate. And that's what happened to me as well, because I did my BSc in math, statistics, economics, whatever. And I did it because I needed a degree. And I quickly realized that no course will teach me what I want, and I have to learn it all myself. And unfortunately, it still remains pretty much the same.
There is no silver lining?
Unfortunately, you need a certain mark to get into a certain college. So that is the problem. That's where we are too focused on marks, and that's the biggest problem. But if parents are far more aware, if educators are far more aware, then we can introduce a lot more of these creative movement, exposing them to as much theater, as much physical activity, these kind of avenues which allow the child to develop their creative skills, because creative thinking ultimately actually can be developed as a skill. Like you teach someone hand-eye coordination, you can teach them, actually help them develop their creative thinking. So I think it rests with how aware the parents are, and they can make a huge difference to the way children will think.
Before we leave you and let you go, I'd like to ask, what does achievement mean to you?
I think when I look back at all that I have done, whether it's with my dance, in education, work in the social impact, in environment and women's groups, and when I look at all that, I feel satisfied that I've been able to use all of these and bring it into my current work. And then when I hear about my trainers then telling me, this child used to be like this, and now she's extremely confident, she feels a lot more confident, she's expressing herself a lot better, her parents have found a lot of difference. I feel that impact. And when you hear these stories, you just feel like, gosh, like you have made a difference somewhere, because we have now around 35,000 children doing GAIT across India, and I feel that somewhere I'm making an impact on the way they're thinking, and hopefully as adults, they will be a bit different, because what you do in your early years kind of impacts. So I won't say it's an achievement, but I feel somewhat satisfied. But I also know that this field opens a lot of doors. So now I'm really looking at children with learning difficulties. And I'm like doing a lot of work on what is happening with the brain, how is nutrition, physiology, physical interventions going to affect children, and how we need to be aware of these things. So now I've started reading, meeting a lot of people, and doing a lot more research in that area. Now I know, so every time you go deeper into it, another door opens. So you don't really feel you've achieved. So yeah, I think satisfied that, okay, I'm kind of not lost the plot. But
You're getting
yeah, I'm getting there. And I think that's the wonderful part. Like, it's a constant learning, and I can constantly keep creating. And as long as I can keep doing that, I'm happy.
So please keep creating and keep inspiring us. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
For being...
Yeah, thank you, Yashika. It was really nice speaking with you. And yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for listening. If you like this podcast, don't forget to subscribe to Voice of Achievers and share the link with your friends. Tune in for brand new episodes every Sunday at 11 a.m. Stay updated and stay connected by following us on Instagram at Voice of Achievers. You may also send us guest suggestions or topics that you'd like us to cover with our guests by writing to us. Send out an email to editor@voiceofachievers.com with your name followed by your suggestion. Trust me, we are listening, and we cannot wait to share more such voices to empower you.